The Durian Heat, bringing big ideas and critical opinions in Southeast Asia.
Hi, good morning. This is Arlene, and you're listening to our Durian ASEAN, where we bring you critical opinions on Southeast Asia. And today I'm with a really young chap. His name is Zaim Mohzani. And
Zaim.
He is the founder and as well as committee organizer for the National Building School. First of all, hi and welcome
Hello.
to the studio.
Thank you for having me.
So, are you excited?
Very. Where's the durian?
Where's the durian? Yeah, it's around here. You just cannot smell
No,
it.
I can feel it. I can feel the durian.
First of all, perhaps you can just share with us about your background and what is National Building School?
Okay. Thanks for having me, Arlene. So my name is Zaim. I'm a community organizer. It's not a common term in Malaysia. If you are familiar with America and Barack Obama, he used to call himself as a community organizer, organizing events for specific reason, usually to come up with solutions for grassroots problems. So I work for various clients, including a few government agencies. And what I do is I help them connect with the grassroots in terms of coming up with solutions and finding ways to better engage them. So the Nation Building School, it's a civil society organization, and we have one powerful sort of mission. We have a dream.
What is that?
Which is to turn young people below 30 years old to be emerging leaders. And when we say emerging leaders, are people that are already achieving something to make a difference in the country below 40 years old.
I see.
So looking at people below 30 years old to become awesome and powerful people below 40 years old. And we have our thing called monthly assembly. So it's not a real school, it's a platform. We have this thing called monthly assembly, perhimpunan sekolah, every month, where it's a forum and everyone's invited to come.
Everyone meaning school kids.
Everyone. Yeah.
But you say it's perhimpunan sekolah.
Perhimpunan sekolah, but we play, so there's a school concept, we play around with the concept of school. Because
okay.
school is cool, right? And I don't know if school is cool, but for us school is cool. And we bring people, usually our target audience is 18 years old to 30 years old.
I see.
To come and you know.
But your organization name is called National Building School.
Nation Building School. Yeah.
Nation Building School. I almost thought that it's about school.
Yeah, I mean, we think ourselves as a school as well, a school for young leaders. And if I can use an analogy, if you watch X-Men, the first movie, the X-Mansion, where Professor Xavier has a school for young mutants.
Oh yeah.
And teaching them how to use their powers effectively and not using for destruction, but to be constructive and to help humans. We always like to think ourselves as that same X-Mansion, but for young aspiring leaders to become great leaders one day.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So what do you do exactly in the Nation Building School? I mean, your role there.
Okay, so what I do is I sort of have the overall, I take care of the management of the NGO. This means making sure that everyone in the team is doing their work. I do the strategies, I do the recruitment. And I think there's 4 of us in the team. There's 4 of us. I'm one of the 4, and I was sort of the brains behind the school, coming out of the school. And what I do on a day-to-day basis in the school is a part-time thing. I don't work there full-time.
But I thought your position there is a principal.
Yeah, principal. So it's guru besar, right?
Yeah.
So we still play around the concept of school. And what I do on a daily basis is a lot to do with finding young people in university, young professionals, and talking to them and asking them, what is that one thing you want to do for the country and how can we help you achieve that goal? And that's what we do. I usually talk to young people on a daily basis.
And most of their answers are what?
Various.
Various.
You'll be surprised. Many people, and young people have a lot of interest, right? So you ask them, you want to change the country, you want to make something better? They said, no, not really. I don't want to play music, which is fine. Music, skateboarding, this is all form of nation building for young people. So we harness on that. That young people, when people are young people, they're going to do cool stuff. We harness on that and channel that to a more productive and constructive way.
I see.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. And also, in your activities, you also invite speakers to share their experience. And those speakers are, of course, people who are who's who in the industries.
Yeah. Well, below 40 years old lah. Yeah.
No old guns.
No. And I think that's what makes it different.
Yeah.
Is that whereas many NGOs and many networking groups, they tend to bring the best. The CEO, the Prime Minister, the Minister, you name it, right? They call the who's who. We don't.
You bring the middle manager.
We bring the up and comers.
I see.
We bring the emerging leaders below 40 years old. People may not know them, but I think for us is, so these people are around. And I think here's one point, right? People in their 20s, which is our target audience, they can relate better to a person in their 30s as opposed to a CEO in their 50s.
That's true as well.
So when we bring people in their 30s and talk to the people in their 20s, they can relate. I mean, they can share, impart knowledge.
Because that's what they aspire to be in the next 5 years.
Next 5-10 years.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's beautiful about the school, is that you get to do that. At the same time, you get to network and speak to the speakers with no barriers. Yeah.
And today's topic, which is not really about leaders, but it's about using English to go global. And in this case, going global means that you actually achieve success in your career.
Yeah.
Do you necessarily agree with that theme that we have today, that you need to be proficient in English
Yes.
to go global?
Yeah. Yes, I think when you look at the world, and English is the lingua franca, and this is the language that many, if not most, countries of the world use. And if I can just pull this up, English is the official language in 67 countries, spoken by 1.8 billion people around the world. This is it is the most widely spoken language in the world.
That's true.
Yeah, and I think in context of ASEAN, 9 out of 10 ASEAN countries have English as their second language. And so I wanted to ask the question was, what is the official language of ASEAN?
It is actually English.
It's English, right?
It's the working language for ASEAN, in a way. But English being the working language of ASEAN, when it comes to the reality that we have today, which is the younger generation, do they necessarily have a good grasp of English?
In Malaysia?
In Malaysia, at least.
So,
and I'm sure you interacted with a lot of people from your age group.
Allow me just to say a little bit about this, right? So, I'm no expert in this field, but I had the privilege to be in sort of two worlds. When I was in primary school, I was placed in a sekolah kebangsaan, SRK Jalan Bangi, represent, and it was a Malay environment. Everyone was Malay. Almost everyone there was a Malay, and we spoke Malay. The medium of instruction was a Malay.
When was that?
When I was in primary school.
Primary school.
And then when I was in secondary school, I was placed in a private school.
Oh.
And the medium of instruction was English. And so I've seen both sides. I've seen people who I've seen friends who can only speak Malay, and I've seen friends who can only speak English. And in that context, I think seeing what's happening in the country now, obviously not everyone gets to go to private school, right? It is worrying. I think and to answer your question, the answer is no. I think Malaysians, young Malaysians especially, are struggling with English. Evidence is everywhere. I remember, in WhatsApp, people always share this like hilarious broken English, pictures of broken English, and it's sad. I think it's as much as it's funny, it's also sad. And Pemandu recently released 3 videos early last month, November, and the 3 videos highlighted, the poor state of the use of English in this country amongst students. And the 3 videos, were touching. It was inspirational, and the point was simple: was that English, if you don't do anything about it, it will become a major problem for our country. Yeah.
But it's a privilege to be proficient in English. That's the reality. I mean, you live in an urban environment. You speak English most of the time. Probably the entertainment that you consume are mostly in English.
Yeah.
It's not fair for people who are not exposed to that kind of environment. So, boils down to school. Do you think our school in Malaysia is equipped enough to teach students to be proficient in English?
I think when I look at my mother's generation, right? She was the last generation to be taught in English.
Oh, the British education.
In 1970s, right? Before it ended. And I think to answer your question, yes. At the time in the 1970s, English was prevalent. Everyone could speak English, or even if they couldn't, they could still communicate in English, as opposed to what's happening now. We are in a position to teach English. We can do that, but I think, unfortunately, the elephant in the room is politics get in the way. Politics tend to dictate what's happening in the education system, and I think this nationalistic sentiment of having to uphold Bahasa Malaysia comes at the expense of teaching English.
It's like language has become a political game where you either have to choose apple or oranges.
Correct.
Why can't you have both?
Exactly. Exactly. That's the point. I think that's the point that we have to highlight. Yeah.
Anyway, we'll take a short break. When we return, we'll discuss further on this topic.
The Durian Heat, bringing big ideas and critical opinions in Southeast Asia.
Welcome back. This is Arlene, and of course, you are with me on our Durian Heat. Together with me is Zaim. He is the founder as well as community organizer for the Nation Building School, and it's not a school, by the way. But
Soon it will be.
soon it will be. So our discussion today focuses more on English language and how being proficient in the language would make you a more global person. But when you talk about global, instantly you will think about employment, getting the opportunity to work not just in Malaysia but elsewhere around the world.
Yeah.
And being employed in good jobs is very rare nowadays.
Yeah.
And do you think that being good in English is one of the main qualities to get access to good jobs?
Definitely. Let me just start by reading this Job Street survey in 2009. It's a widely cited survey that states that 68% of employers have previously turned down a potential new hire due to poor command of the English language. And another one is they also believe that 91% of employers say English is the language of business, and it's quite clear cut that employers look for people that are able to articulate very well in English.
Mm-hmm.
And given the number I just gave there, it's the reason why many young people, especially Malays, are not able to secure high-paying jobs, good-paying jobs,
Because of the
because lack of proficiency in English.
I see.
And this has led to a relatively high level of youth unemployment in the country, and
or
also
mismatch of jobs because
Exactly.
they require certain skills and certain level of communication skills especially.
Exactly.
And our young people cannot deliver that.
Exactly.
70% is a huge number.
Yep.
And why this is happening in the first place, in
Yeah.
your opinion?
Education. I think like what we discussed before
have to
this,
go back,
you have to go back to the
education.
education system.
Mhm.
I think young people are. I guess another point to add to what we discussed before this was this idea that in the Malaysian community, and I think you will be familiar with this. In the Malay community, if you speak English, if you're a fellow Malay, they tend to look down on you, and this idea that, hey, why you speaking, or why you so action, why you have to speak in English. So that sort of that cultural barrier hinders young Malaysians and also young Malays to master the language.
I see.
Yeah.
But why is it so important to master English when they are working in Malaysia? Why not Bahasa Malaysia?
Well, both are important. I think Malay, but BM is our national language, but English is the working language. In the era of globalization, as we become more and more globalized, and Malaysia tries to be globally competitive, you have to speak English.
So that I'm being a devil's advocate here, but
Sure.
you see a lot of the successful developed countries, some of them still retain their language identity. I mean, you go to France,
Yep.
you go to some extent Germany, Japan, Korea.
Yep.
They don't put that much emphasis on being proficient in English. But why we are obsessed with being proficient in it? Why it's so important to us?
Yep. I think something that came to mind is, yes, France and Korea, they don't emphasize on English as much as the national language. But I think the level, the quality, and the level of education in their countries are high, and it goes hand in hand. And in our country, it goes hand in hand with English proficiency. Look, Malaysia has been a British colony before this. This is in our heritage. This is in our history to be able to speak English. That's why our parents can speak English relatively well.
That's true.
And I think we should leverage on our history, on our heritage, that English was once lingua franca. And I think Malaysia, why not, right? Maybe France and Korea, didn't have that history, but we do, and I think we should leverage on that.
Do you think also in developed countries like France, Korea, Japan, and so on and so forth, they also have a good system of translating English language books or books from other language into their own national language without any censorship.
Yeah, I
Unlike
would
in
think so.
Malaysia.
Yeah, I would think so.
I mean, for example, let's say I'm a Malay-speaking person without any knowledge in English.
Yep.
If I were to read a book that is written by an intellectual who writes
Yeah.
in English,
Salman Rushdie, for example.
I probably wouldn't have even know the person's name because I don't have access in English books that is being translated into Malay. And of course, in Malaysia, censorship on books is actually quite
Yep.
high. That it goes. I mean, when a book comes to Malaysia, it goes through so many filters before it's being allowed to be sold here.
Yep. Totally agree. And I think probably this is also related to what we talk about, education and employment. We are not reached the level, or we're not matured enough as maybe not the society, but maybe some people in powers that be feel that we're not ready, to read intellectual and critical materials. But I think we are.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, again, if the government, the country wants to be globally competitive, well, I think it's time that we open our minds to what's out there. And I think young people especially can discern on what's right and what's wrong. But don't deny them the opportunity to learn. Give it to them. And I think young people, I have faith in them. They can discern. And they can make informed opinion on what's given to them.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about the job market in Malaysia.
Yep.
Most of the job market in Malaysia, do they require English, being good in English?
I would think so. I would think so, and I say this in the context of corporate Malaysia. I'm saying this in the context of good paying jobs. You need to be able to speak English. Maybe for the labor, sort of the low skilled workers, you don't need the blue collar workers. Maybe it's not needed, but I think again we're becoming globally competitive. We're trying to compete with the world. Eventually, we would have to go up the value chain, and when you work in corporate, English is necessary.
Mm-hmm. Whenever they, young graduates, when they go through the interview session, can they articulate their ideas well in English when they are being asked any questions at all? I mean, maybe you can share some of your peers' experience.
Sure. and I think let me just hide this one first. Right? Business Today magazine in I think earlier this year, they were speaking to HR experts and top 3 on their issues, and one of which was lack of English proficiency. So that's a fact, right? And personally speaking, when I went for a job interview myself, I went there. I did really well, and I think one of the comments was, "You can speak really good English," which is not fair. I think I'm more than just being able to speak good English. I think
do you want them to highlight your other talents as well?
Correct. I want to be assessed on the strength of my character, the strength of my skills, as opposed to just being fluent in English, and that reflects the sad state we're in. That ever increasing number of young graduates from local institutions are not being able to articulate English well.
They might be great at what they do. They might have studied very well in school.
Yep.
But they are not able to articulate well.
Correct. Mm-hmm. Correct. And in the Pemandu video that I mentioned earlier, there's I think one scene where I think a teacher said that, I think it's a university teacher, and they said that the person has a 4 flat CGPA, right? Top of the class, but she or he is not able to articulate very well during interviews. And because of that, doesn't get a job offer, despite the fact that the person had technical skills, top notch, top talent, but was not able to articulate in English and failed. Mm-hmm. So I think that it highlights that employers are looking for people that can speak English, in the workforce.
It also highlights that communication is key to going global. Yep. Being good in communicating with others. Of course, in this case, when you want to go global, you have to use the global language, in this case, English.
Yep.
Are Malaysian graduates in general poor in communication?
Communication of English?
English or communication in general?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I love this question, by the way. And I think I can say this. I was once a Toastmasters, a member of the Toastmasters International, right? It is a movement of public speakers. an international movement that teaches you the importance of leadership and also public speaking. And when we have our club meetings, we'll meet young people that just want to be guests and just come in and observe, but we also force them to speak. And when they do, and I've seen many cases, they are not able to speak English well is one thing, but they are also not confident in articulating their thoughts. And I think this is also reflective of is a systemic problem, reflective of the system that we're in. That maybe young people are not, they are told what to be done and not told to think for themselves. And this is present. I've seen it for myself, and also being a community organizer. When I go to the rural side of Malaysia, is it even as near as Sungai Besar, right, which is in Selangor, you can't speak English there. You just can't speak English there. People don't understand the language.
So you have to speak Malay.
Yeah, you have to speak Malay, exactly. And I'm not saying this is in Perlis. I'm just saying this is in Sungai Besar, Selangor.
I see.
Not able to speak English
Just
at all.
the outskirt of Kuala Lumpur.
Exactly. Yeah.
So access of the English language is also very limited just outside of the urban area. Anyway, we'll take another short break. When we return, we'll talk more about this.
The Durian Heat, bringing big ideas and critical opinions in Southeast Asia.
This is Arlene and you're listening to the Durian Heat. With me is Zaim. He is, of course, with the Nation Building School. So we discussed a lot about the importance of English language either in education or also in employment.
Yep.
But I want to go further. In Malaysia right now, there's a huge diaspora community. Not in Malaysia. There's a
Across
huge
the world.
Malaysian diaspora community across the world.
Yep.
And a lot of them see that Malaysia is a place where they cannot find any hope for either employment or even education. Do you think it is partly due to the fact that we are not equipped, to sort of it's like educate or provide the platform for our community to flourish globally?
Yep. Yes, I think to answer the question, I think Malaysia has in a way declined in providing and nurturing world class, global minded citizens of in Malaysia. And I think just to give you a picture of this, the World Bank report in 2011, and this was using a number that they found years ago, not even 2011, but before that, there is 1 million Malaysians overseas. Half of them are in Singapore.
Wow.
And then
so Singapore is technically a pseudo-Malaysia.
Pseudo-Malaysia, yeah, it's a massive community over there. And I think sort of like a few factors that contribute to this brain drain, so to speak, right? Lack of attractive career opportunities and attractive salary remuneration. And the second one would be perceived social political injustice, right? And the third one is interesting, which is what we're talking about today, which is the quality of education in the country. So this highlights that the World Bank report states that Malaysia, for it to not only reverse but sort of keep the talents in the country, they need to do something with regards to the education system, on top of the other two that I just mentioned. So it is, while I think brain drain is a natural phenomenon, happens everywhere around the world, but I think for Malaysia, if people are leaving just because of the education system, then that's something I think that we can do and something that we can probably address.
What is the main requirement for a good education system, in your opinion?
Also a great question.
If you were to move forward to the future and start something new again, from scratch, and equip our population with the right kind of education and knowledge, what would that be?
I can't speak from a policy standpoint, but I think for me, last year I was involved in this program, and it was about teaching English to underprivileged children in a Chinese school.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and
in a Chinese school.
Chinese school, exactly.
So you speak Chinese then?
No, well, I do a bit, Itian. Anyway, so in the school we went there, and it was a 6-month project. And initially, we came in. I'm a student grad, so I'm like, you know what? I can teach kids. I can teach anyone English, right? I had that mindset, and went into the school, and we were teaching Form 3 and Form 4 students. And when we wanted to teach them the basics of English, we realized they can't even understand English. And so what happened was they didn't.
And they are in
Yep, secondary.
in high school.
High school, exactly. Before they graduate, right? And it was worrying. But I think what we did. Obviously, we had help. We had professional help. So what they did was they started using different techniques to teach people English, and this includes what is your favorite song in English. And once they said, "Look, this is my favorite song," and we played that song, and we asked them, "Can you sing this song?" Right? That was one example. The other one was showing videos, showing short clips, people speaking English.
So I'm sure you played a lot of One Direction song. Just kidding.
We did. You'll be surprised. We did. Yeah, One Republic, One Direction, and it worked. 6 months. We were worried halfway through. We thought we wouldn't be able, because they had to perform at the end of the 6-month project in front of everyone in the school. But halfway through, they started to have fun, and I think this is key when you want to learn a language, or being in an education system. For you to learn, it has to be fun. It has to be engaging, and that was what the pilot project that we did in that Chinese school.
But you highlighted a very interesting fact here. In Malaysia, it's not just the public school which you went during primary school. It's also the vernacular school that are facing a huge problem on the lack of a good platform to teach kids to be good in English.
Yep.
And why is it so? Is it all these schools, either public schools or vernacular school, they become nationalistic in a sense that they emphasize too much on their mother tongue language rather than on English?
Probably. Probably, I think in the national school you probably overemphasize the importance of Bahasa Malaysia, and also in the vernacular school Tamil and Chinese / Mandarin. Probably, and I think it goes back to what we were talking about. But if they make English relevant, fun, exciting, engaging for young people to learn, trust me, young people would pick up English faster. And I just want to share a story. So my fiance, she studied in a government school in Melaka, Kedah, Melaka, right? And this is not English environment. This is Malay environment. Do you know how she learned English? YouTube.
Oh.
Movies, music. It was the fastest way.
That's
because
true.
it's fun. Watching movies is fun, and also you learn the language. So, and I can relate to this. I also, besides being a Toastmaster, I enjoy watching movies. And watching movies also improve your English. So we have to start thinking outside the box. And I think, to government's credit, they are doing this. We are actually going beyond the typical mainstream approach of teaching English. So I guess we have to come up with something interesting when it comes to teaching English lah.
Talking about government, I have to bring in the National Education Blueprint. Not in general, but just to specify the area about English. Do you think our blueprint is good enough for the next 5 years?
I think it is comprehensive. I think the education blueprint from 2013-2025, it is a comprehensive blueprint. And I think what's unique is they took in feedback from the public, various stakeholders. It took a while for them to do that, but it is comprehensive. And they did mention about English, even though I think next year as English, as a required pass for SPM has been, I think, postponed, which is unfortunate. But I think as a whole, I think the blueprint is sort of a step in the right direction. But what Pemandu did recently with the video, and I think what came out of it was these two things, right? The highly immersive program, HIP, and dual language program for 300 schools. And I think the idea there was not top-down approach, but bottom-up. If the school wanted to do it, the parents wanted it, the students wanted it, then they'll give it to them. I think that is a interesting approach, and I think that's something that also another step in the right direction when it comes to improving English. Government has a lot of wrongs. They also do a lot of wrong things, but I think this is something that I think we should also support government in saying they're doing the right thing. And I think this is time for the Rakyat to say, come in and start playing our part to improve English.
I like the fact that you're highlighting the bottom-up approach, but how can community do it? I mean, when you are in a community where people rarely speaks English.
Yeah, got it.
Like how do you need a nation building school to
I-
come into
yeah,
every school
definitely.
for intervention?
Right. By the way, nation building school events are in English. And we make it a point to be in English,
I
you know.
see.
But I think we mentioned this earlier about this sort of this cultural barrier or this stereotype of Malay speaking English and not, you know, and being looked on upon. I think that's something that we have to change. I think that just because you speak English doesn't make you less of a Malay, you know, and speaking Malay doesn't make you more Malay, right? I think it's something that we need to, and people at our level, especially like parents, you know, young leaders, need to stress this, that it's okay to speak English in public. It is okay, nothing wrong.
That's
You
true.
know, and we should be proud. Okay, like we have Malaysian English also, which is great, but you know, celebrate it.
You mentioned about entertainment as or watching movies as part of your intervention to improve your language proficiency. But what else that young people today can do to sort of, you know, brush up their English?
One thing that came to my mind was, you know, young people should look into, you know, joining many initiatives out there like Toastmasters International. Love it. This is amazing
I think
initiative.
they have to refer to you to join
They don't have to.
Toastmasters.
They have to go to the website, which they can find the nearest club. But believe you me, there are many opportunities in this country for young people to learn English. I see sort of this rise, and you know the importance of English. That many civil society organizations are doing this, giving opportunities for young people to learn English. But for me, it's sort of this idea that I mentioned earlier was, you know what, make it fun, like, you know, go to the movies, listen to music in English, read books in English. This will definitely help you learn English, and it doesn't have to be a program, but do this on a regular basis. Young people, and I don't have to stress this, but it's already happening.
And I think it goes alongside with being confident with yourself as well, because a lot of people today, they might know, you know, English language as in the grammar part, the composition part of the language, but they might not be able to articulate it well.
Yep.
I think that's a big difference here. I remember back in high school, during SPM exam, a friend of mine, he actually scored A1, which is like the best in English.
Yep.
But he can't speak even a sentence of English.
He cannot.
He cannot,
Wow.
because he would just be quiet and feel very shy, and he would just nod and like say that I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's the reality of today's graduates. I mean, you see a lot of top students in graduating from medicine to lawyer to a lot of different really interesting fields, but they become very shy when you ask them in English.
Yep. And I think it's more than just, you know, I think it's more than just the education system. I think, for my observation lah, I think Malaysians tend to be shyer when it comes to,
Yeah.
you know, openly sharing their thoughts. But I don't think there's a problem. I think what young people, I think, you know, what I wish I had when I was younger was the opportunity to have a space to speak English. And you know, in schools you have debates. You also have
Choral speaking. So many
There's so many activities
yeah.
out there, already available. But I guess it's for the schools to encourage students to take it up and start learning and then start getting involved, because that will help. That will definitely help being a well-rounded person. Yeah.
I remember back in the olden days when my dad told me how he actually was forced to learn English, quote unquote forced.
Of course, yeah.
The teacher actually punished every student. At that time, 10 cent was a big amount of money. 10 cent for every non-English word that they use in the classroom, and I thought that was interesting.
That's good. Yeah, that's immersive.
It's like, hey, 10 cent, that means no nasi lemak today. In the past, 10 cent can buy you a nasi lemak.
Correct. Yeah. And that's the idea of like immersing yourself in the language, right?
Yeah.
And so I took Mandarin, basic level Mandarin, about a few years ago.
你好吗？
好，我是马来西亚人，我很好。And what I learned was, when I learned Mandarin, was immersing myself in the language and the culture, and not using English when I couldn't speak the language. So when we were taught the language, we were told, don't speak English, just speak in Mandarin and just learn it. Even if you make mistakes, it's fine. right?
So it's fine for a student to speak broken English
It's
as
fine.
long as
It's fine.
they just speak and then they will improvise, along the way.
I mean, how do you expect to learn if people make fun of you when you know you're not doing it well?
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is sort of another point, right? Segue. This thing about failing in our society, right? Failing is seen as taboo. You can't fail. But in America, this idea of failing forward. You fail so you can succeed. You fall down so you can rise up again later, right? Same thing when it comes to English. We can speak broken English, but as long as it's going towards a direction where we can speak, can master the language, I'm all for it. I think it's fine for young people to speak broken English as long as they practice and eventually get good at it. Yeah.
We
But
have
start
to tell-
younger lah.
We have to tell that to the rural kids. Be more confident.
Yeah.
Just go forward. But I want to highlight about the situation with rural kids, or just people who live outskirts from the urban area, because their problem is different from people from our side, because
Yep.
they do not have access to good education, good teachers, good
Yep.
schools, or even access to internet.
Yep.
How do you deal with this situation?
I'm reminded of Teach for Malaysia.
Mhm.
This initiative where they bring top talents. Some of them study overseas and bring them to the rural areas to teach English. And it's really right. It is a challenge, but it is not impossible. I may not be an expert in this, but viewing Teach for Malaysia's success in teaching English and bringing out, improving the standards in the school, it is possible when from that teacher viewpoint, they are able to teach English and make it fun, and then people learn it.
So the key word here is make it fun.
Make it fun. I also like to I like to mention this point by Idris Jalil. He mentioned this interesting point was about the 4 constellations, right? Principal, teacher, student, and parent, right? 4 constellations, sort of 4 stakeholders in the education system. And I think the 4 constellations, when they are aligned, it is crucial, fundamental to develop world-class education system.
Even though you are all the way in the rural area.
Even all the way in the rural area. And if you look at the Bamando video, people in Felda, this Peloroka Felda said, bahasa Inggeris sangat penting. And so, we can't assume that maybe in the rural area, just because they speak English, they don't think it's important. It is important, but maybe they don't have the opportunity, they don't have the access.
Yeah.
And I like to call on the NGOs, the civil society organizations in Malaysia. We have an important role when it comes to also going out there in the rural side and making a difference.
Yeah.
It's not just about being in the urban side, everything's comfortable here, but also going out there and making a difference.
And I think one of the key persons to be able to make change are teachers.
Yep.
And I don't know whether you're aware not recently, but quite recent as well, news about a bunch of kids from the rural area won the choral speaking
Yes. Definitely.
competition. And they have very little exposure on English,
Yep.
except for their teachers who
Yep.
worked really hard together with them, and they won, and they beat up schools from the urban areas. So it shows that you can be good in English, despite having your school in the rural area.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah, definitely. And I think choral speaking is also fun now. It's not boring,
I think
right?
the key word here is fun.
Yeah, it's fun.
Making
Make
it
it
fun.
Yeah.
Make the kids feel excited about
If you
it.
teach English through just classroom experience, it's boring. Nobody gets to learn it. I mean, you learn it, but I think it's not fun enough for you to learn the language. And also this other thing that I speaking of the studying Mandarin, was this. I also enrolled in this course and one part of the course was about mastering language, and they said that young adults can master language if they find it fun, engaging, exciting. They learn it faster because then they also realize that it's also fun, and they can also apply it in real life. Having learning the language.
That's true.
Yeah.
Final question about today's discussion. So the way forward to going global for Malaysia.
Yep. Wow, big question.
Coming from the Nation Building School,
Yep.
If you have tips for how to be good in English,
Yep.
just for people like us, what are some of the tips that you can share?
So come and join us. Come and join our event.
Yeah.
And the point is simple, right? Because this is also like a highly immersive program, right?
Yeah.
come to the Indonesian Medium School, and for us, we speak English. Our events are in English. When you go to this environment, it's more likely you speak English than not, right? And that's the point here, that come and join us and see that our events are fun, by the way. So in English, and I bet you, if you stick around long enough with us during our events, you eventually improve your English, because the exposure to young people, the young leaders speaking English, will inspire you to also want to master the language. Yeah.
And you force them if they don't speak English, I suppose.
No, I mean, and many of the people that come for our school events, the school assembly, are from, some of them are rural kids, by the way. Yeah, rural university kids, and they speak English.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
They speak English. That is also because they're hungry and passionate, but still. Yeah.
So you guys are doing something great there.
nationmediaschool.com if you don't want to know more.
Anyway, that's all from today. Thanks for discussing with us.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.